Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome along to the Rolling Cup podcast. This is episode number 13. I am your host, the amazing Sniper Beef. I'm joined alongside.
Hi guys, Devastate here. Welcome back to the podcast.
Indeed, indeed. Now, a quick intro for those of you who aren't au fait with what the Raw Link Up is. So, the Raw Link Up is a group of friends, myself, Devastate, and there's probably a bunch of about 15 to 20 of us. We've been gaming for pretty much all our lives, but every year we come together and we take over one of our houses. We take along our PCs, our desks, and our chairs. We hook them up and we play LAN games for an entire week every year. This year we had the 26th year in 2024. It's an absolutely fantastic week, and on the podcast we talk all things about the link up, plus all things gaming and anything else that tickles our fancy. But Devastate, I think I'll pass over to you to kick off this week's podcast because I'm sure there's a very very interesting topic that we want to kick off this week on, isn't there?
Yeah, thank you, Beef. I just want to sort of preface those of you who are sort of used to coming on, listen to us. Thank you very much for everyone who continues week in, week out, listen to us. And now we're into our third month of doing this. And we usually either have a guest on, or we will cover a little bit of the news, and we'll get to some of the news a bit later. But there is something I just want to sort of bring up, talk about. That's making sort of the news recently. I just want to talk to Beefy about it, gain his thoughts. And what I want to talk about is what's called it's called the Stop Destroying Video Games Initiative. Now, this is currently available in the EU as an initiative that you can go and sign up for. So if you are in the EU, you can go and sign up for it. But basically, what this whole thing is about is to give responsibility to game publishers who are when they turn off games. So I've got a bit of a sort of a synopsis here. So like the increasing number of publishers are selling video games that are required to connect through the internet to the game publisher in order for them to work. While it's not a problem, it's when the support for the game ends, you simply can't play the game anymore. So let's say, for example, you're playing a League of Legends game. If League of Legends decided to turn off the server tomorrow, that game is unplayable.
Yep.
And so the initiative sets out to almost try and put into practice that actually game publishers need to have a bit of responsibility when it comes to ensuring the future of their game beyond the time period that they want it to be supported. So essentially, what they're saying is that let's say you have a game that you supported for 10 years. A game publisher, obviously, who runs the live service game, there's a cost to them. There's a server cost for supporting a live action game, a live service game. But when they go, right, it's not profitable enough to run that anymore, and they can turn it off, it essentially renders the game useless. Now, you could have spent £50, £100 with microtransactions, many more with custom skins, custom guns, a whole multitude of different things. Could have spent thousands of pounds on a game. Now, the publisher has every right to do what they want with their game. Turn it off. Because you don't buy games anymore. You're effectively renting a license. You're paying for a license to use a game in a live service environment. So what this new initiative has done is when a games publisher no longer wants to continue supporting the game, that it can open the doors up for someone else to run the game. So in the same way that imagine I have a game and I don't want to run it anymore, I would have to facilitate a way for someone else to be able to run it, whether it be that a private server, or anything else. Because if they don't deem it profitable enough, they need to be able to make sure that someone else can play it. Now, there's a couple of sort of legal statutes that they sort of come under. That the issue today is that it violates consumer rights. and with loss of access. Well, when you disable a game remotely, consumers lose the access to the products they paid for. And they sort of say, well, it's akin to buying a book, having it taken away a few years later. I'm not necessarily your favourite. Obviously, with the book, you buy the product, you're not licensing it. But it's essentially a way of you've paid money for a individual product and it loses its core functionality. I think that
Mm.
that is a problem whenever the game's publisher deems that it can't make any more money from the game.
I suppose now you've talked through it, I'm sort of liking it to like when a version of Windows goes end of life from a support perspective, isn't it? In that, like, there's going to be PCs out there. There will still be PCs out there running Windows XP, I guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, Windows XP stopped support for the OS a fair few years ago, but it's still workable, isn't it? You
Yeah,
can still use it, but there's no more further updates to it. There's no security patches. There's no bugs being sorted, etc. Unless there's someone in the developer audience or ecosystem who actively goes and does that off
yeah,
their own back and then publishes it to GitHub or something like that, for example.
exactly.
Um,
The difference is that Windows doesn't affect it. Windows isn't forced, certainly today, to be that when you get to the end of life, it says, "Well, it's over. It's
yeah,
finished."
yeah,
Now, with a lot of games, it makes sense if you've got like, I don't know, let's say you've got video game. Let's say you've got FIFA 19, and then you've got a new game every year or a new game every
yeah,
few years that you can move on to. But some people still want to play the original game. Some people, especially there are some games, and this is why I think it like could really like change the dial, is games that are single player games that exist on a live server.
yeah,
Um, and I think that if you still want to play a single player game, that company decides when your time is up playing that game. So I think that there's that. But it also goes into the ultimately the more that this happens and that these live service stops happen, is that ultimately it's preservation of art. So video games historically um, are form part of art and cultural expression, and that when a live service game stops, it's not like you have like a cartridge from Mario, or you have a CD of Metal Gear Solid, or you have a
Championship
cassette of
Manager
an old
2000.
yeah. So once these live service games stop, there is, because the game is purely online, the preservation of that game cannot go on.
Yeah, it's
Um,
basically like goodbye, see you later.
yeah. Um, Now there are a couple of other things. So um, it's not just loss in terms of financial, but in terms of time. So how long? Like if, for example, Arc was purely online, and one of our games that the Royal Link Up had put 3,000 hours into it. If Arc just wanted to turn it off, that's all of his time, not only his money that he has put into
Yeah,
it. Um,
yeah, because like there's gonna be games out there, and obviously not people of our age, but younger people who will spend all of their free time playing a specific game, and whether it's, I don't know, League of Legends, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Eve Online, whatever it may be, they're going to be putting probably tens of thousands of hours in compared to what we would do. And then if you just turned it off, it's like there's your what you've been doing for all of your spare time gone. And then it's like, well, you can't just, oh, I'm going to go and play a different game. You're like, this is what I've been grinding on. This is what I've been playing with my friends every week in, week out for years, and now they've turned it off. Like, can you imagine, like, if that happened on like a really big game, which is still like played
yeah,
quite a lot, from which is, I don't know, say 4 to 10 years or
yeah,
5 to 10 years old. I'm just trying
and
to think
it's.
what's the most popular game
I
which
mean,
is 5 to 10 years old, which people still play very regularly. I'm thinking like League of Legends would probably be one of them, but that's like
Yeah,
League of Legends is updated on a regular basis. There's patches regularly every few months. But
I
like
would
if you said
probably
to me,
say something like classic World of Warcraft. Like
yeah,
if
yeah,
you haven't gone through some of the expansion points of World of Warcraft, I'm sure that
because that was
um,
what 20. That was the noughties, wasn't it? That
yeah,
came out '06, something like
I
that.
won't say about that. Yeah,
I mean, I've still got the box. I've literally still got the box the original one came in. So um, yeah, I mean, that would be very, very frustrating and annoying. And like honestly, like there's a lot of people out there who their whole not being, but they spend all of their spare time gaming. And
and
if you've grinded until what's the top level in World of Warcraft? 60, wasn't it? Was it 60,
yeah,
65?
I don't know what it is now.
Don't know what it is now. But if you grinded it to that, or if the equivalent in like Call of Duty when you're prestiging, like if you've done multiple prestiges and you've been grinding hours and hours and hours in the game, you spend every evening playing with your mates, really having a great deal of fun, and then boom, it just gets
Yeah,
turned off. Oh, you'd be
yeah.
mortified.
Now I think that this the decision to do it, I understand why when it becomes unsustainable from a financial perspective for a publisher or a developer. I understand that they want to kill it off. I think that they need to look at a minimum time that something is out there for, and also how they switch it so a game cannot is just not dead. Because if you think about like there were plenty of people today, like the retro game industry is massive at the moment.
Massive.
Everyone's on the retro industry. Now, if these games that we're playing now, you think about it, are going to be retro games in 10, 20, 30 years' time, but they're not going to be able to be played
No.
because every game we basically play now is live service, or the
Yeah,
majority of them are.
yeah. How many games you play is physical media? Like where you've actually got a
Oh,
physical
no,
game where you yeah,
no, but
zero.
even, I mean, I think that there are games like Sins, for example, isn't
Yeah,
a live service game. So they could turn off essentially the Sin server, you could host your own one.
yeah.
Um,
As long
but
as the game has the capability to do that, of course.
exactly.
And
So
if it doesn't, and there's a lot of games out there which don't have
mm,
LAN or private server capability, see you later.
yeah,
Goodbye.
so there's that, and I think it's not only for PC, but for Xbox, for PlayStation. That I had. So obviously this week they've turned off the online access for the Xbox 360.
Yeah, yeah, I
Uh,
saw that.
Now, again, I understand that that console came out like 15, 16 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, long
But I
time.
get it. But I still want the ability to play games on it some way. Like,
Yeah,
and I think what we might end up seeing is a either some sort of either black market or modding market that will basically go right. You put this onto a console, and it allows it to connect to an alternative server of your choosing.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that
yeah. I think
there'll
that
be
makes sense.
something there'll be something that comes out of that. Um, I was
But
trying
I
to talk
think
about. Sorry, carry on.
no, I was going to say I think that there's also two parts from the publisher's perspective. There's the communications part on and how and if this goes ahead, and like if it does go ahead and they have to then I don't know inform the consumer, i.e., us the gamers,
Mhm.
that it's going to happen. How and when do they do that? Do they go right at launch? It's launching on whatever today's date is. We will be turning the game off in 6 years' time, whatever that period
Yeah,
is. I can't see them ever doing that. But it would be more of right. How do we then communicate it to the legion of gamers who are playing the game that in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, we're likely to be ceasing all support for the game and turning off the servers. I mean, there'd be uproar in any game, whatever game that is.
Mm.
But then there's also the how do the games publishers actually go ahead and then do that?
yeah.
Like it's massive. Like it's an absolute. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. It's an absolute ball ache.
Oh yeah,
Like, because as a business, you want to continue making money, being profitable, so you can continue to churn out AAA games left, right, and center. And if you've got a game which is 10 years old and there's 5,000 people still playing it every month, not a huge amount of players. Whereas you compare it to something like Battlefield or Call of Duty, you're talking tens of millions a month. There's still those 5,000 people who are loyal to
mm,
your game brand or series or whatever it is, who are playing the game on a regular basis, but it's just an older version of said game, and they're going to be absolutely distraught that
yeah,
if they're playing it every day, every week with all their friends, and you then go and turn it off.
yeah.
Oh my days! Like, that's a nightmare as a business to try and how do you do it, and then how do you communicate you're going to do it?
Mm.
What's the alternatives that you could offer them, etc., etc.? It's a minefield.
Yeah, and I think what ultimately this is an initiative to get people talking about it, and obviously that's why we're talking about it now. Now, obviously, with EU legislation, it's not even at that stage. I think it
Yeah,
needs to get something like 500,000 like legit signatures, and then it gets discussed.
dust.
But I
Yeah,
think it's ultimately a step in the right direction. I'll go. I've got a couple of questions in here
well,
of because essentially, and this has been a new sort of way that we have to look at games in 2024 is you don't buy a game anymore.
no,
You buy a license to use the game.
yeah,
Essentially, is what you're doing now. So, do you think that the more people talk about this, it breeds more or less trust in game publishers? That if we're aware of it now, does it? Do you believe the
yeah,
trust at the moment? You ultimately have to trust the publisher to keep the game running.
yeah, yeah. You're putting all your eggs in one basket, aren't you? In terms of you're paying your money to play whatever game it is and whatever platform it is for the period of time that you're playing it. So you are putting all your eggs in your basket in terms of putting all your trust with that developer, the publisher, the brand, etc. And it's like, do you then, if this does go ahead, so the question in terms of going ahead is that they can't turn it off? Is that what's trying to go through, or they should turn it off?
I think that there's lots of schools of thought by various sorts of lead think tanks on this. I think that some people basically say, look, if you're going to turn a game off, you have to give away for people to play the game still,
Yeah,
but they have to be able to deal with it, whether that's host their own server in a local or an online sense. You should
yeah,
not be allowed to once you deem it is unprofitable to run a server and turn it off. You shouldn't be able to kill a computer game in that way.
yeah. To me that makes sense. To me that would say to me, however many people are still playing the game, you should, as a dev or a publisher, create a way that those people who have paid money for the game, invested time, hours, and enjoyed a lot of time on the game should then be able to continue to play it. And whether
Yeah,
that is right, we're going to do an update which will essentially stop all online play, but you can still host your own private server. This is the update that's going to go through. It's going to go through in 6 to 12 months. It'll be completely free of charge, but then after that, there will be no online play available for the game afterwards. I think that's fairly reasonable
yeah,
as an ask to the dev or the publisher, but also reasonable from the gamer's perspective in that it still allows them to continue to play as long as all of their, should we say, whatever the online element of it is taken into the either the single player version or the one which you can then run your own hosted private server on.
Yeah.
I.e., if you're in Ark, for example, and they shut down Ark Survival Ascended tomorrow, you can port all your dinos, all your kit, all your weapons and stuff, and you can put it on a character, and you can then launch it into your own private server, which you can do currently. Now, I think that to me, that's a fair and reasonable ask on both sides of the spectrum in my eyes.
Okay, so do you think a publisher or developer should be forced to consider what happens for when they no longer support a game?
Yeah,
Okay, so why? Because
because
so they have, so let's say that they release a game and arguments say they commit to 10 years of
yeah,
server support, because these are functionalities like that you're going to have to build into the game from day one,
yeah,
essentially, unless you got major updates, like fundamentally to the core game code. So these are
yeah,
stuff that you'll have to build from day one, and it will only ever get used the day that that game is no longer operational within your own environment. So what I'm saying is it fair for the developers to spend additional money for when they don't make money out of it?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because for whatever that period of time is that the game is supported, shall we say, we'll just call it supported,
Yep.
they're going to be profitable and making. All right, if it's a AAA game, they're going to be making probably hundreds of millions, if not billions, aren't they? In
Okay. Well,
profit.
let's take an indie to take away the
Yeah,
triple
I
A
was about
element.
to.
Yeah.
I was about to say. I was about to say on the flip side. On the flip side, if it's an indie studio, small studio of a handful of devs, should it be on them? I still think yes, but maybe there should be maybe a get out clause in that they disclose that, and then maybe this is part of the legislation is that you can maybe disclose that when we do turn off support for the game, there will be no support for the game, but we
Mhm.
don't know when that time is. Now, I don't know if that's fair on the consumer. I would think, I think it's not fair, but it's reasonable in terms of the communication to the consumer. Because as long as you know what you're getting in for, if you go and buy Championship Manager 2024, 2025, and you know in 2035 they're going to stop all support for it, yeah, I'd probably play it for 10 years. I'd be quite happy with that. But then if you're playing a solely online universe type game where you've grinded hours and hours and hours in it, you've got a character, etc., you've explored everywhere on the planet, but you still love playing it. I don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it becomes tricky when, because when it become ultimately, if something ever becomes goes from an initiative to legislation, it affects everyone. Not
Yes. Yeah.
from Ubisoft down to a one man band building a video game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I also think that it becomes incredibly. I think that maybe something, and I don't think many people have talked about it, is actually does at the end of life of a video game's live service, ultimately does the source code have to get sort of announced or like opened up so that people can officially mod a game
Yeah. So right, we're end of
potentially?
lifing a game. We're end of lifing a game today. Here's the source code. It's going on GitHub here. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
But then it opens itself up because then it's the brand of whatever company it is. If then someone goes and mods it with something completely illegal, for
Yeah.
example, or something that they don't want in there. So if they did, I don't know, I'm just thinking Fall Guys. If Fall Guys then turned into like a GTA in terms of you can go around shooting all the little Fall Guys characters, I mean, there would be obviously a lot of what's the word, defamation from a brand perspective.
Yeah.
So you got that to take into account from the game publisher or dev point of view. But then I kind of think the dev or publisher kind of has to do that, but in a way that they go, right, our hands are done with this game, and maybe then that becomes an industry standard that right after I don't know 10 years, whatever it is, most games then go end of life and then just go onto GitHub or somewhere where you can download the source code, and they go, right, we are not responsible for this game anymore. It's not our game.
Yeah.
But
I
then
also think that every game should almost come out with a minimum guarantee of support.
yeah,
So,
it's like an OS, isn't it? It's like Windows. Windows always comes out with right. We will guarantee support until X date, and then you know that right by X date or realistically probably a year before you want to be upgrading to whatever the new version of Windows is because otherwise you're going to be screwed.
yeah, the issue then steps with development. So, let's say, for example, let's take I've got this. Let's say I've got a game. Let's call it something. Bumble got devastated online. Right, it's the game. Let's say that's the game, right? Racing game. And I have a minimum commitment of 10 years. Like, because I think that I'm not going to sell everything year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. I'll still have people buying the game 2 years. So is it fair if someone buys the game with only 2 years to go? Or is it 10 years from purchase? Or should that actually be figured into the price? So let's say, for example,
Yeah,
it's a £50 game, just to make it easy, and I got it for 10 years. That every then subsequent year, it reduces in price by £5. So if I then buy the game with 1 year to go, it only should cost me £10.
yeah, and I would tend to agree with that. But then you've also got again, I come back to the communication element of it because we're going to be when you go and buy these games from now on, whatever these games are, it's going to be, as you said, you're buying a license to it. You're not buying any physical media. It's very rare that you buy physical media nowadays. So there should be almost, I don't want to say like a warning message, but right, you're going to be downloading Devastated online. We are only supporting the game for the next 2 years until whatever it is, 2026. Because of that, you get a reduced price, but you need to be made aware that support for the game will stop on, I don't know, 1st of August 2026. And then so the consumer is completely informed at time of purchase, and it's in bold black and white. And then I think it's fair because from the publisher's perspective, they've informed the consumer, but the consumer also gets a discounted rate on the game because they're only going to be able to play it for a period of time where it is still supported. But I still think that there needs to be an element after it because,
Yeah.
like, I'm presuming is Galaxy still supported or is it just
Oh
private
no,
servers?
so Star Wars Galaxy's got decommissioned a long time ago, and it was only part to a very dedicated modding community that they actually ripped some of the source code and started rebuilding the game from scratch. So they had to
Yeah,
build the game from scratch, let
yeah,
alone like just run a private server. So
yeah.
I do think that there's um, I think that we could carry this topic on for a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, to,
Um,
to that point, what I would say is in the chat, in the comments below, let us know what you guys think. Like, what do you think in terms of, from a perspective of the consumer, is fair, and from a perspective of the publisher or dev,
mm,
whether it be a AAA, Ubisoft, or a 2 or 1 man army indie studio, what's fair on both sides of the spectrum? Because as you can see here, Devastate and I have been chatting for about half an hour, and I don't think we've come to a realistic conclusion. I think we've come to like what's fair on both sides, but if this is going to go down in EU law, it's going to become global law because if a
yeah,
game launches in EU, it'll be global from in terms of the legality perspective. So this will be worldwide if it does get implemented. And yeah, what do you guys think? Because yeah, it's
it's a
definitely
can
one
of
for
worms,
debate.
isn't it? It's a
Yeah, oh
can
yeah,
of
yeah,
worms.
it's a minefield. It's an absolute minefield from the perspective of the dev or publisher. Like, how much do we charge? Do we give them a discounted rate? How do we communicate? How do we physically do it? Do we put source code in at the start that ensures this? Do we actually enable it post end of life
Mm.
and end of life it from a consumer perspective? Do you want it cheaper? Do you want to know about this when you buy the game? Is it going to put you off the game? Probably to a certain extent. But if it says 10 years, most people who are gamers, should we say 20 and under, are going to go, oh, 10 years is an eternity. When in reality, you and I, Devastate, know that 10 years will fly by, given that me and Devastate have known each other well over 20 now.
Yeah,
So time
but
absolutely flies from that
but
perspective.
also then how do they advertise it? Are they almost on every
Yeah.
single game? Like, are you like if you buy a physical copy, it's like this like almost like released
Yeah.
in this date. Like if you go on the Steam store, are you going to have almost every game almost like a big X amount of time left in live
Yeah.
service?
Yeah, like
This game
like a
come out,
countdown timer.
yeah.
Like a countdown
Like
timer to the end of the
I
world.
mean, it opens up so much. I mean, but then you have other instances like let's take GTA, and GTA has been out over 10 years now. Still has a massive popular following, but I guarantee you that game dies organically when the new
Yeah.
within 24 months after the new Grand Theft Auto game comes out.
Yeah, I would say, and I think this goes for every game, doesn't it? I don't think that any game will completely die organically when a new version comes out. I just think that it will go the focus of the gamers. So if there's, let's just say, I don't know, 100 million gamers, you're probably looking at 99,800,000, whatever that will be, and there'll be a couple of 100,000 people playing the game. It's like when they returned on the servers for one of the Call of Duties a month or two ago, which was nearly over 10 years old. People were going back to it and they were streaming it on TikTok, and there was so many people watching it because a lot of people just don't like the current Call of Duty, and
Yeah,
they prefer it when it was Modern Warfare 2, for example, or Black Ops 2, and I'm one of those. So if they turn those back on today, I'd be all over it.
yeah.
I'm not interested in the current Call of Duty games. I think they're terrible from a personal perspective. So I think is all down. A lot of it is down to the individual personal preferences. But I do agree that I don't think it will die organically, but there'll be a big shift of players moving from 1.5 to 6, for
Mm-hmm.
example.
Cool. Well, we're going to move on there. I will put in the description below, I'll put a link to the EU initiative, and also there's some more details on stopkillingvideogames.com. Go and check it out. Go and make up your own mind, but leave us a comment what you think needs to be done, because I do think there needs to be guidance. Because at the moment, it's a bit of the Wild West.
Yeah.
Publishers can do what they want. I think we do need to direct them. We need to direct them in the right way. And we've got to do it in a way that doesn't harm the games industry and certainly harm the small indie studios. But yes, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Indeed, indeed. Anyway, moving on, and yeah, any comments on that? Drop them in the comments box below. We would love to hear your thoughts on it. But yeah, moving on. Some gaming news. So, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is rapidly approaching. It'll be released on the 25th of October this year, so not too far away, less than 3 months now. But you can actually play the early access, or the beta, should we say, at the end of this month, August the 30th, till September the 4th. And you can actually get involved in that in a number of 3 ways, in one of 3 ways even. So you can pre-order the game. I haven't actually seen how much the game is. I dread to think.
While you're doing that,
I'll let you have a look. But obviously, I've seen the size of the file for PlayStation, and it was 300 gig. And you're like, so if you've got a 500 gig PlayStation, 300 of it's going to be taken up by Call of Duty. I mean, it makes no sense to me. Anyway, so you can pre-order the game. You can get it with a qualifying Games Pass subscription, or through in the UK a special offer through EE Mobile Network or Cell Network, as it would be. But Devastate, what is the price for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 to pre-order?
So obviously you can get, so you've got the cross-gen stroke standard edition, which is the game, early access to the open beta and the Woods Operator Pack, and that's through Games Pass.
You can get that on Xbox Games Pass.
It is going to be on Xbox Games Pass, which is an absolute win.
Yes,
that might be something.
Over that.
I might give that a go. And you've got pre-order, and I'm just going to look at Steam. I'm going to look at Xbox. I'll just look at Windows here. Okay,
I'm gonna
so
get. I want to guess 59.99. I genuinely haven't looked. I'm gonna
so
guess
it
59.99.
is the pre-purchase on Steam for the standard one is 69.99.
That's a lot of
The
money.
Vault edition is 99.99. So that is Steam.
And is that
Um,
just with the Vault edition? Is that just additional like skins and packs and stuff?
so with the Vault edition, that is um exactly the same thing. Early access, Woods Operator Pack, which is what you get on Game Pass. Hunters versus Hunted Operator Pack, Mastercraft Weapon Collection, Black Sail Season 1, so it seems like a season passing again that we're
Right.
seeing, and a Gobble Gun Pack for zombies. So,
Just more additional DLC, isn't it? Which you
yeah,
could just launch with the game anyway. Which we've
which,
which we've had that
everyone
discussion.
knows how much that grinds my
Yeah.
gears. That
Like
Vault
if you're
Edition
gonna spend
on
a,
is a
I was-
hundred.
100, if you're gonna buy, if you can spend £100 on a game, I want something physical. Give me a Call of Duty something, a helmet, a gun that I can put on my desk, on a shelf behind me, something that gives me something physical rather than just more shit, basically.
Uh,
Um, anyway, so yeah, you can get involved with
yeah,
that at the end of
about
August. I
70 or £100. That's basically
70
that's
to 100
just
quid, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I'll definitely be. I mean, I've got Games Pass myself
yeah.
for PC. I'll definitely be having a look at it for sure when the open beta comes out. And maybe I'll even do. We'll do some streaming on that towards the end of the month across some of our platforms. Devastate, because I think that will probably be a good one to look at
Yeah.
for consumers for sure, and then we can discuss it on the podcast as well.
Mm.
And maybe we can, if we can do if we can record it, we can maybe put a little bit of gameplay on the podcast for people to see, and then yeah, we can discuss it as well. But yeah, I'm mildly excited for Black Ops 6. I'll be interested to see what's going to happen to it. But anyway, on to more news. Chivalry 2 is now content and feature complete as the developer moves on to new games. I mean, that's a very odd line, content and feature complete. I mean, just
Was
it
it
doesn't.
was it like a beta launch and then it was it all
I don't actually know, but one of the comments that I saw on one of the Reddit forums was, "Haha, that's a good one. Content and feature complete."
I
Yeah,
mean it
I mean,
means nothing, does it? I mean
yeah, it
absolutely
literally doesn't
nothing.
mean anything. It's like, well, content and feature complete. So, are they leaving the game completely? Are they going to come back to the conversation from earlier, isn't it? Are they leaving the game completely? Are they going to just continue supporting it? What does that mean? I think there needs to be a little bit more information on that. Um, moving on, the new Battlefield game is being touted by the CEO, one of the most ambitious projects in our history, as all hands get to work on a Battlefield universe. Now,
You know what that
obviously,
100% sounds like to me? That sounds like it's gonna be Battlefield, they're gonna sell one more game and it's just gonna be content updates. It feels like it doesn't feel like there's going to be like a 1, a 5, a 4. I mean, the naming schemes all over the bloody place anyway.
yeah,
Um, but it feels that they'll probably do two ultimate like modern and old,
yeah,
and it'll be one game and you can get it all. But then you'll pay. I guarantee you, it's a license model. You'll pay £100 a year to get access to everything, and it'll be all just constant updates within the one system. So it's not like buying a new game. You'll just have to
yeah.
It'll be £10 a month. You get everything.
Yeah,
It's going to be
that
that
kind of makes
model.
sense. But then at the same time, I'd like to see, like, from a gaming perspective, like, what does Battlefield universe really look like? Is it going to be like open world? I think that would be pretty cool.
That'd be
Um,
unbelievable.
yeah, that would be, and obviously you could run it in old and new, i.e., World War One, World War Two, from an old perspective, and then obviously like 2042 esque.
Oh, can you imagine if
Like,
it was the
yeah,
old world to do like what actual World War Two
yeah,
frontline battle with like a 5,000 v 5,000, like
yeah.
other
Well,
side of the map.
like you imagine, like you start in England, get on the ships, go to France, like and do deep. I mean, can you imagine how ridiculous that would be? Like that would honestly be that would be mind blowing. That would be mind
Yeah,
blowing. That would
you get a jump in a Spitfire, take off from an airport, and you got to fly across the sea,
the channel,
across
yeah.
yeah, and you're just like attempting to
And then
take
you see,
down
oh,
German bombers.
it's the Luftwaffe.
Yes.
Um, oh, that would be unreal. So yeah, I think there's two. Obviously, we don't know what the Battlefield universe is going to entail, but if it was a mix of both, I think that would be very, very cool.
That is us dream planning. That is.
Yeah. And then finally, there's been some rumors that AMD are going to be launching some more RX 7000 series GPUs, but on the lower end. So coming in at sort of just over 20, just over £200 or $260. So yeah, potentially, obviously from a lower end gaming perspective, but I mean,
I mean,
Why would
their
we?
mobile chips are really good. They're really good mobile gaming chips that are part of the CPUs are very good. Um,
But like from a PC perspective, I don't. Why would you be launching such a low end model unless you're targeting a specific
because
gamer type who?
not everyone can afford £3 for a PC or £2.
Yeah, true.
If you've only got 800 quid available, by the time that I mean, even that you can like by the time you brought you
You
see,
can still get a decent. You can still get a 4000 series.
no, you
And
can't. No, so if you think about it, so
what's a 4060?
4060 about 350 quid, 400 quid, 400 quid.
289. 289 directly from Nvidia. £289
So
or
what's that?
286 quid. So
Motherboard 80 quid, CPU 150, cooler 30
yeah,
quid,
you could do it.
RAM you could. Mm,
It'd be tight, but you'd be
it's
able to get
real tight.
yeah, but like easily under £1,000 with a
Oh yeah,
4060
I think yeah. So I was
comfortably.
probably being a bit too. I think yeah, it's almost that 600 quid
Yeah,
price is where it
yeah,
becomes a bit tight.
yeah, yeah. Because you're not going to be um you're not if you're building a 800 quid PC, you're not going to be going right. I need 64 gigs of DDR5 RAM. I need 4 terabyte NVMe. You're going to be going right. I probably need half a terabyte. Probably do DDR4, maybe 16 gig. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm not overly
I mean, to
like
be honest with you, I think you'll be better off, and that'll be the interesting thing to see is what the performance is like going up using like if this is going to cost 250 quid, going
yeah,
up against a 30 trying to pick up like a 3070
yeah,
rather
yeah,
than a 4060. I think
yeah,
that and even if I was shopping if I was trying to buy a 700-800 pound PC today, I would be on the used hardware market all day week because
yeah.
you could
Oh,
go and buy used CPUs, find them on Facebook Marketplace, go and travel, pick them up. You can haggle the price out of them. You can get some absolute deals compared to the performance you can get with new hardware today.
indeed,
And
indeed.
people will give away PC components.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
is so cheap. I've got I've just got like spare graphics cards just like sat like in my room. Like
Yeah, I've got a 2070, which will still run 1080p all day long,
yeah,
and 1440 to a certain extent. But I've just put that in my kids' PC, and all they play is Minecraft and Fall Guys. And it's like, I mean, that's absolutely overkill for what they need. But yeah, I completely agree. Anyway, that was it for the news. Devastate. Is there anything else that we've got to cover on today? I don't think there is there?
no, I just want to say thank you very much for everyone joining us. This is coming out a little bit later than planned. Um, we're a bit all over the place with our schedules recently, and we've got a bit more disruption next week because Beefy is going away on holiday. So you'll have me with a guest. I'll keep their I'll keep them anonymous for now. But yes, we'll have a guest next week, and you'll have me back covering everything. So I just want to say thank you very much for everyone for watching, subscribing, liking. Thank you very much for everyone who continues to listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So doing really well on Spotify.
Nice.
It's yeah, a lot better than I expected. But yes, thank you for continuing to interact with us. Remember to leave something in the comments what you think about we discussed with the EU legislation initiative. And we will see you again in a week. My name has been Devastate.
And I'm the amazing Sniper Beef. We'll see you next time.
See you later, Beeps. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.